Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we're going to be talking about some news that emerged on Thursday that you may have heard. A man named Kevin Samuels passed away unexpectedly in his mid to late 50s. And he was a very popular, very controversial star that got very famous over the past year and some change, maybe the last couple of years. And I did a solo episode about him previously. So you might want to go back and watch that at some point to kind of get kind of more of a deep dive into what the message he was sending and some of my thoughts on it. So I said a lot of positive things in that episode, which I think were correct. My opinion of him over the last several months since doing that episode, I think I've gotten a little bit more negative just in terms of, well, some things I'll get into a little later. I don't think anything I've learned about him invalidates some of the positive things I pointed out last time. But I'm sorry to say, in the aftermath of his untimely death, I've got some more criticism of him this time around. But I think Mr. Samuels, of all people, would agree that the show must go on, that I mustn't withhold my opinion due to his death. The cause of his death is, as far as I can see, still unknown. We don't really know. We know it had something to do with his chest. So I don't know what he's a skinny guy. So it was not like obesity, causing cardiac arrest. It could have been drugs. And again, he's a statistics guy. So I don't think he would be highly offended by me speculating that it was something to do with drugs causing his heart to fail. But it could have just been, being in your late 50s brings about new health surprises, tragically. So we don't know. I don't know. Okay. Like I said, he was very popular. He was he was a black man. He was highly focused on addressing the so-called black community. And a lot of his vocal audience were black people in America. And some of the points I made last time that I'll run through now is he kind of looked like Malcolm X. Like he's like skinny, wearing a suit and glasses, and stayed very calm. And like it was rare to kind of see him lose his cool. And so he kind of had an image he was always sort of holding on to, which is kind of like starting to speak to some of the things about him that I started to kind of like think were kind of phony. It's like at a certain point, if you're not being real with the audience, like if you're not ever showing any vulnerability, like you're not ever kind of exploring things in real time, ever showing any curiosity, then and to that degree, you are a charlatan, I think. So he was no saint, I'll say. He was not a god among men. He was a bit of a BSer, a little of a salesman, to use that word a little pejoratively. And it makes for great entertainment, and it could make, excuse me, for a great sales pitch and for great advice often, which I think in some ways he gave. But also, you got to be real. You've got to be real with the audience, or else you're not bringing out the best in the audience at a certain point. So he advised his audience to work on themselves, which I think is the ultimate positive message he was sending. So that's something that, whatever you think of his advice, I think there was an implicit individualism, which is great, especially, I'm sorry to say, when you look at the history of self-appointed black leaders, people who speak for the blacks and to the blacks, like we are galvanizing them and telling them what to do. All too often, you see these so-called black leaders, they go to college and they learn, capitalism is evil, individualism is white supremacy, and they pass that message along to the community. They say, capitalism did this to us. We're suffering because of capitalism, because of and everything that basically capitalism entails. That is, being, individualistic, rational, chasing your own values, your own dreams, and putting yourself above the community. That is acting white, being educated and assimilating, basically. If I had to pick one word, assimilation is, quote, acting white. So for a very long time, I think so-called black leaders have discouraged assimilation. And as much as the word assimilation might turn people off. That it sounds like losing who you are, like you're throwing away rich traditions and things like that. I actually think assimilation, properly understood, is a wonderful thing. It means, to me, it invokes individual people, each individually saying, "Here's the life that I want," and they assimilate into an individualistic culture, a culture that allows you to be individualistic, a culture in which an individualist is able to act on his values, and that is what I think is the legacy of America, like the real legacy of America. Immigrants coming to America and assimilating, forgetting where they, quote, came from. Because, look, nothing against, quote, culture, nothing against food, nothing against, I don't know, scholarship, all the things that your ancestors may have left you. But also other people's ancestors did plenty too that you can benefit from. And people currently walking this earth are creating wonderful values for you. And if you have certain first-handed values that you choose, like, why should you give up this much? And I'm holding my index and my thumb together if you're not watching this visually. Why should you give up this much? Like, if you want to marry outside of, if you want to marry someone of a different skin color than you're lucky. You're lucky you found somebody that you want to marry. Everybody should celebrate that you're getting married. Not one person should give you any amount of guilt for who you choose to marry. But all too often, the message that, so-called Black leaders have preached is marry within the Black community, right? With the Black community needs you, right? You need to breed, you need to, and this is not exclusive to the Black community. I mean, I think there's parallels to this in other communities as well. The Jewish community, whatever, the Zionists, I think similarly to the Black community, in facing horrible persecution, galvanized to look for ways to get away from persecution. And so far, this is very noble and good. But what's the end goal, I ask? Like, what's the end goal? Is the end goal individualism? Because if the end goal is collectivism, if the end goal is subjugating your own values to the, supposed requirements of the collective, of the group, then count me out, I say. So it was great to see a very popular guy like Kevin Samuels, a very, very popular advisor, sort of father figure to a lot of the audience, I think, or just teacher to a lot of the audience, to see someone telling people, asking them, like, ask yourself, what do you want? He would ask his callers and he would ask the audience sort of generally, what do you want? Who do you want to marry? Do you particularly want to, like, if he's speaking to a Black caller or Black audience member, do you particularly want to marry someone who's Black as well? And that's not a leading question. It's just kind of like, which is it? Like, if the answer is you only want to marry someone who's Black like yourself, then okay, here are some of the statistics. Like, here's how many Blacks of the opposite sex are single, like statistically, how many, like, and here's what they tend to choose in a partner. So he was asking people, like, what is it that you want? And if you want to marry someone of a different race, Kevin Samuels was not there urging you against your chosen values. He was simply asking these questions, asking people, what do you want? And once you've answered what you want, how are you going to get it? So there's something very individualistic about that. And also, he was pro-capitalism. I mean, he was not saying, capitalism hurt us as the Black community. He was not saying that. He was not saying socialism is the answer. He was saying, get yours, make plans. So he told men, work on your careers. And he told women, and this is where the controversy really starts to be seen. He told women, basically, you don't really need a career. Like, you should work on being as attractive as you can and landing the best man that you can to provide for you and for his kids, like the kids that you're going to have with him. So, very controversial. So you can definitely hear people taking issue and saying, like, what do you mean? Women need a purpose as well. Women want a purpose. Women are human beings. But to Kevin Samuels, he just seems to have such a materialistic view of people. And he seemed a little influenced by some of this evolutionary talk that we see very often, where, like, they don't really pay attention to, like, free will. They don't pay attention to, what Ayn Rand calls sense of life. So when it comes to, like, romantic attraction and stuff, people are often, I mean, often, I think people are always, they're drawn to something that is not a dollar amount or a particular look. Like people meet each other and they weren't even looking for this type of person, that now they realize they're in love. So I think if I can steel man Kevin Samuels, I think he would answer what I just said and say, all those things being equal, that there's such a thing as sense of life, that there's such a thing as actually loving somebody for who they are and all that. All those things being equal, he would say, high earning men tend to have more options, and very attractive women who are also pleasant to be around tend to have more options. So I, Kevin Samuels, am advising people to work on themselves in those respects. So men, work on your careers, and women, don't have a bad attitude, and, you know, be motivated to make yourself as attractive as possible. And not bad advice. I think it's great advice. Some of the connotations of it, I think, can upset people. But I mean, generally speaking, work on yourself and ask yourself, what is it that I want and what's the best way to get there? So Kevin Samuels was highly focused on statistics. And yeah, of course, people are not statistics, right? People, again, they have free will. Here's my thing. It's like, if you're an exceptional person, if you know you're exceptional, then you don't really need statistics, right? Like you know that you're unique. You know you'd be impossible to replace. You know that you're the prize. If you know all that, then you're good. And so maybe Kevin Samuels would say, look, I'm mostly speaking to like more average people. That's as far as like my thought process can go down that route right now. But yeah, this sort of spirit of self-improvement, I think, is his strength. The fact that this is a very, very popular like figure in the so-called Black community, I think, is of historical significance. It's maybe he's not the first of his kind, but it's definitely not a lot. I mean, very often and all too often, the message that Black leaders have given their congregants or whatever, their audience, is, you know, capitalism screwed us. The white man's capitalism screwed us, and we should marry within our own race, and you should choose your career according to what the Black community needs. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson once told a story, you know, the scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said when he was choosing a career, he was going with astrophysics. And somebody in his community, I don't know if it was like a high-ranking member of a clergy or of the NAACP, whatever it was, somebody told Neil, the Black community cannot afford to have you be an astrophysicist. The Black community cannot afford that. Basically, like, the Black community needs these professions right here. They don't need an astrophysicist. So for you to pursue astrophysics is too selfish, right? Isn't that disgraceful? Imagine telling a young man with a dream, your passion, your career doesn't benefit your community, so forget about it. Absolutely disgraceful. And that is certainly not what Kevin Samuels was telling the audience. He was advising men, pursue a career that can make you money. Again, you don't have to take his advice. You might say, I want to be, you know, an elementary school teacher because that's my passion, and I'm fine with making much less money than a Goldman Sachs finance person. That's for you to choose. But again, Kevin Samuels, he was kind of pointing at statistics and saying, like, men who earn above this amount tend to have a much easier time finding a really, really attractive and pleasant woman. And you take that into consideration, he would say. So here are some of the negative things that I kind of started to notice from watching his stuff since the last time I've spoken about him on this show. He was a one-trick pony. At a certain point, it's like every day he was just doing kind of the same show over and over again. Same message, same it's just like the same message over and over again, taking calls. And like, as soon as a woman would call in, no matter what she said, he would just go, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Like, can you believe this? And like, the whole chat room was like on fire, people making fun of her. It's like, is this really the world you want to live in? So I kind of started to see him as like a bit of a, I don't know, is charlatan the word? Is Yeah, I don't know exactly, but I think you get the point I'm trying to make. All right, here are some of the things that students of objectivism might dislike about the message that Kevin Samuels was sending. Of course, there's no like spirituality to what he's talking about, right? There's nothing about chosen values and just kind of like what life has to offer, and like I said, sense of life, like the way people kind of interact with the universe, like the way people approach things is a huge element of attractiveness and like what attracts people to one another. So there's no focus on that. It's all like materialistic. So students of objectivism, like myself and a lot of you, might think that Kevin Samuels is missing all of that. And again, if I can steelman him, I think he might answer, that being equal, it's still a great idea to really, really pay attention to your to kind of like what you can do to work on yourself. Now, something that students of objectivism might like about Kevin Samuels is kind of the same thing, like that he's so focused on material things. So I think kind of like a immature, kind of a primitive reading of Ayn Rand might make you kind of a materialist, where you think like life is only about money and everything's transactional, right? Everything is a trade in like the material sense. Like, I'll only give you what you're giving me, right? It's just like kind of taking out that very down to earth grounded element, and just like everything's just like transactional. So they might be drawn to the message that Kevin Samuels is pushing. Again, so like a degree of that is maybe a little bit misunderstanding what Ayn Rand is saying, a little bit even misunderstanding what Kevin Samuels is saying. And, at the end of the day, material things very much matter. They are a requirement for living. Everyone has a certain lifestyle that they want. And, and if women want to have kids, and if they want to raise those kids in a city or whatever, Kevin Samuels is asking them, where do you want to live? How many kids do you want? Okay, here's what it would cost to have that lifestyle. And now, unless you make that amount of money, here's like, you're going to want to marry someone who makes this much money in order to have that lifestyle. And men who make that amount of money tend to prefer women who do X, Y, and Z. And there it is. There it is. So I guess in conclusion today, I would say, see yourself as a value. I think that's kind of a positive thing to take away from the sort of legacy of Kevin Samuels, the sort of, if you can abstract something positive from what he was doing, see yourself as a value, but also be aware that you're not automatically valuable. You're not like just like to another person. Like, you're not automatically going to be attractive to another person. Ask yourself, like, what do you have to offer? So yeah, what are you looking for? But also, what do you have to offer the other person? All right, we got a couple super chats. Marilyn with $3. Thank you for that. Maria with €5 says, he rubbed me the wrong way at first, but he did push for individual accountability on both sides, men and women, which was good advice. Well, that's nice. Let's all try to be more like Maria. Ali, the member, says, quote, women work on your attractiveness. Bro, no. I mean, why? What's wrong with that statement? Women work on your attractiveness. What's wrong with that? So I remember, I guess I'll conclude here with a bit of a story that from watching one of Kevin's long monologues, where he was talking to what he presumed to be black men watching. He said, look at like what would help your career. What would help your career? Like being clean shaven, having short hair, and dressing nice has been demonstrated to help men get ahead in the workplace, he would point out. And then he said, and don't give me this whole, oh no, that's just the European view of how we should look, right? Kevin Samuels is saying, don't give me that. He says, if the money in your pocket has pictures of American presidents, then you're living in America, and you need to look at, how do men make it in the corporate world in America? So, yes, it's like, do you want to go through life having a chip on your shoulder? Like, oh, I don't belong in this country. Like, I'm going to have dreadlocks or a crazy beard because, I don't need to listen to I don't need to listen to what the white man tells me to look like. So you see, he's giving men the same kind of message. He's saying like, work on your attractiveness. Like, take care of the way you look, among other things. He's telling men. So he's not only telling women, work, try to be as good looking as you can, and men are getting a blank check. He's definitely telling men, like, work on yourself and be, quote, competitive. Bonnie with $2 says, so no relationship by 35, you're a leftover woman. And like the mind explosion look. I don't know. I guess I would look at it case by case. I think plenty of 35-year-old women find love. But the fact is, men tend to, if they tend to go for more like 25-year-old women oftentimes. So it doesn't mean a 35-year-old woman can't find love. Anyway, facts are what they are. Marilyn with $2 says, not if you work in tech. And I don't know what you're referring to. Allie says, really, so many things, like referring to like literally just saying women work on your attractiveness. Like, that's such an offensive thing. Anyway, thank you for your comments, everybody. Hugh James says, Kevin was the king of clickbait. Yeah, that absolutely is true. He loved titles that were provocative. He loved using pictures that had nothing to do with the actual video clip. He definitely was innovative in the game of YouTube and Instagram. Like, he would go live on Instagram. He would take calls over there. He would record those calls and then post them on YouTube in short clips. And then he would do YouTube live streams on alternate days, which would in turn just like this never ending stream of like content that he was using and reusing. And he definitely was very good at what he did, and made a whole lot of money. If you would watch one of his live shows or his video premieres, it's just people super chatting him constantly, just a lot of money, expecting nothing in return, like not expecting him to read their comments or anything like that. Sorry, there's a vacuum cleaner outside of my home that you might hear. I can hear it. Certainly, it's a little distracting. So, to me, that's like they're expressing their gratitude towards him. Like, they're expressing like, you've improved my life. So I don't know. I would be a little more benevolent towards him. All right. Maria with €5 says, it's pretty simple. According to Kevin Samuels, quote, men want sex, a sandwich, and silence. Yeah. So like, that's one of the Kevin Samuels quotes I'm not crazy about, because it's like maybe kind of day to day, that's what a lot of men want. Like sex, sandwich, and a silence, like kind of day to day, that's a way to keep a man happy. But men want so much more, just like women want more than just money in the bank, right? Like women, human beings want to grow together. They want to bond. So, he obviously, Kevin Samuels could have done a much better job exploring the nuance of things. But again, I think if he heard me say this, he would tell me, I understand what you're saying, he would say, but I am addressing the problem that we're facing right now, which is women have been promised that they can completely let themselves go and completely be annoying and unattractive. Men have been told they are entitled to basically, well, I don't know. He didn't focus much on this, but in some cases, so like maybe he would say like black men have been told they can dress in a, as outrageous as they want and still get ahead in the workplace. And I, Kevin, am telling them, no, you need to look at what actually works in the culture we live in. All right. Daniel with $5 says, the manosphere is full of implicit materialists / subjectivists. Evolutionary psychology statistics create their reality. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much wrong with a lot of these like lifestyle and a lot of these like lifestyle and like dating advice channels and people and stuff like that. So you really like kind of have to work to kind of sort through the good and separate it from the bad, or like see if there is some good, abstract it away from all of that. But that's what I'm into. Like I'm curious. So I would approach this all with a sense of curiosity is the point I'm making. Yeah, like Allie's still heckling me. You heckle me every time I talk about topics like this, Allie, but like, what do you want me to do? This is me. This is what I believe. Do you want me not to have an opinion? Um, are you approaching anything with a sense of curiosity, Allie? Is that what you do? Obviously not. So I'm approaching things, trying to find the nuance, trying to look for, is there good in this very controversial figure? And I get nothing but negativity in return. So thank you for that. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Coming up at 8:30 UK time, it's James Valiant discussing Ayn Rand's essay, Consciousness and Identity. Enjoy that. Thank you all for joining us today. See you back tomorrow on The Daily Objective. And goodbye.